Germany reunification was incredibly hard, but it is by far one of the biggest moments of the 20th century and changed everything. This was such a major change in the entire world that it even probably contributed to the collapse of the USSR. Today we are going to go over German reunification and alternate history. What if it never happened? Have you ever wondered that? We're always thinking about World War II and sometimes World War I, but we're never really thinking about Germany before reunification. So we're gonna go over Germany reunification and what if it never happened. I'm also gonna try and put this up on Alternate History Guild as I want to help promote my channel more. So if you're watching it on the guild, then I've done it successfully. And thank you so much for checking out this content. I have a YouTube channel where I do reaction videos to history and even make my own original content. And if you're feeling bored, you can just go on live streams and have fun. Thank you, and without further ado, let's go start this video. Before we fully jump in, let's look at the history and how it all happened. The reunification of Germany in 1990 was a significant historical event that marked the end of the Cold War era and the division of the country into East and West Germany. The reunification process was a complex series of negotiations, diplomatic efforts, and political changes that culminated in the official reunification on October 3rd, 1990. The start of it was after World War II when they lost. Now the reason why they weren't fully scooped up and just annexed was that they realized they couldn't do this alone in the Cold War. And so France, America, and Britain all came together and decided instead of splitting them up into their own land they control, they would all bring them into one nation called West Germany. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union made a new puppet regime called East Germany. And so, this would go on from 1946 all the way until 1990. So let's now look at the new change. Germany is now no longer reunified. So what? You have to remember, Germany reunification was a very major event that many historians see as the end of the Cold War. With this enormous event that brought back Germany. Remember, this is a few decades after World War II, and many were worried that fascism would go back into Germany and Germany could just easily destroy every nation. So many of the deals were like giving up claims on any other territories and no longer to really be imperial. But we can take this to the new history. Let's make a new timeline. Instead of just them no longer deciding it, fascism will sort of come back into Germany. It will become popular again. Far-right fascism will become much more popular in West Germany and will have a lot more people ruining Germany's reputation. Because of this, people like Margaret Thatcher would go and despise against this. Now, the real reason she didn't want this was because of stuff like economics. If Germany reunified, it would be an economic superpower. And so they would have to decide what to do. And in this new timeline, they do not allow the reunification, even though when the vote came in, it was over 90% overwhelming majority yes to reunify. So this would create major disappointment to many, and would probably turn them more into other ideologies and extremisms, and lose even more faith in alliances like NATO or the EU. What about the USSR? Well, the USSR is sort of still alive. They do not have the power of the USA at this time. They were kind of declining. They were not really a nation that was super powerful anymore. And East Germany regime was just not doing well. If they kept the Berlin Wall, that would probably make a lot of changes. Like, many would still have their morale within the USSR, and they would kind of still be around. Probably, I wouldn't really say modern day, There's no evidence that the USSR could have held out for so long. Their economy was unstable, they did not do the best they could, and they really show no more effort within the 90s, which led to their collapse. So my prediction is it's more until the 2000s when they collapse, around 2001, 2002. Would that affect 9/11? Well, in my opinion, the people who started 9/11 were kind of revolutionists. They were not communists, however. So I don't think they really would make much of an effect, especially seeing how over time the USSR just became more and more irrelevant to the world. So probably 9/11 would still happen. And this would be the major two ideas I have. One is where the USSR is still around in the Afghanistan war and decides to help out. And the second version is that nothing really happens, they kind of see it, and then they just collapse. But that one's a little more boring, and I don't really want to do that one. Let's just go into somewhere a little more exciting, because, I want to entertain all of y'all. So, now they kind of go in, and I think this actually could have made it worse somewhat. That they carry more resources, and it just would drain the USSR even further, and they probably wouldn't be ready for the war. And maybe they would not even do much of guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare was the main reason why the soldiers won against the United States. Maybe not a full-on win, but somewhat. Kind of like Vietnam. That's America's true weakness, as you can tell, because they never really won a war that was with guerrilla warfare. But back to the point. The USSR would probably take more damage and drain even more, and possibly could have even drained the countries that they were helping. So maybe, we don't know, I'm just guessing, this actually could have made it worse for them, and possibly gave America a greater hold. But I do not think it's possible America could have controlled Afghanistan or Iraq. Maybe just been slightly more influenced. One more thing, since the USSR is still around, it's probably more of a little Cold War type of thing. So I'm guessing America is a little more careful and would have more of a small proxy war. They would not beat Afghanistan, but I do think that they would do a little bit better or be more cautious and not get Iraq involved. Either that or they do good enough but the USSR still collapses. It gets destroyed, scrambled all around. Now Ukraine, Belarus, and then the Baltics, what about those? Well, the Baltics, I don't know, they're just there. I don't really know. Ukraine would be a very different world. There would be no more of the Ukrainian war, and it depends on the presidency, but guessing that it's been so long and such economic downfall, it would most likely want to lean more in the West and give that a chance. And then what about East Germany? Well, there's two more versions now. One that I personally find more entertaining, an East and West Germany, and second where they just reunify and no one does anything. I want to look at East and West Germany. East Germany is now free and chooses to be now part of the West, sort of. Now, where would they lean? Left or right? I personally don't know. But seeing that they were kind of like around the other Eastern nations based off that, and how the Eastern nations were much more now leaning conservative, right-winging, I would say East Germany would become a right-winging area, and while West Germany would become the most Western nation possible, and I would guess a much more liberal nation, especially seeing how they would have control of Hamburg, which Hamburg is one of the most liberal places in Germany. And so we have the two nations, one more liberal and one more right-winging. The right-winging nation absolutely destroyed due to, well, being in the USSR for so long, and in the West kind of being economically strong, but not the superpower of the world. And then what about 2023? Well, in 2023 they would still be sort of split, but there would be fights to reunify. But due to their right and the left-leaning rhetorics and agendas, they now see themselves more as enemies than friends over time. Especially seeing how politics has divided us within the past few years, this makes it harder for East and West Germany to reunify due to their political split, with only Berlin wanting to be within them. Berlin being probably the most liberal area of their group, while the rest choose to still be more of the right-winging. But East Germany would be much more corrupt and poor of a nation, while the West is much more economically powerful, not the superpower, but economically strong, and a great friend of the Western Allies. Maybe even more of a puppet than its own independent nation. But regardless, I had a lot of fun making this. I hope you had a lot of fun, enjoying this video. I'm not really the best at this, but I'm doing the most I can. I want to do more alternate history videos. Maybe I could do some more ideas. You can just tell me, in the description, some ideas. I'm joining History Guild so I can promote my channel a bit, but I also want to do it because I really think this is a cool idea I want to do. Now, yeah, I'm going to go now, but thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon. Make sure to check out my channel if you're interested. Goodbye.